Hello, everybody. I hope that you're all doing well today, Sunday, December 14th. And it's been more than 3 weeks since the last video I put out, which was the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And I wanted to do this short video today because I said that I would before the holidays. And I know that this time of year we have a lot of balls in the air, so to speak, and we're all trying to make sure that none of them fall to the ground. And so I'm no different. But I wanted to do this short video so we could talk about Infidels.org because I mentioned it last time, and I want to make sure that it's out there for you to review at your leisure. I know that you're also very busy, especially at this time of year, and so you may not have a chance to see this one for a while, but the wonderful thing about the internet is that basically the stuff will be there for as long as we want to. You can see the Christmas tree in the background. My wife put it up the Friday after Thanksgiving with the help of our son, and so it's part of the festive time of season, or season of the year rather. So anyway, to the subject at hand, I talked about Infidels.org, which is a website that I came across when we were traveling back from Ecuador, as a matter of fact. And I came across this website because I was going to buy a book, and I ended up buying the book after all. And I wanted to see some reviews about the book, and one of the reviews was hosted by this particular website. So basically, in a nutshell, the website, to read its own mission statement, it says naturalism implies that there are no supernatural entities such as gods, angels, demons, ghosts, or other spirits, or at least none that actually exercises its power to affect the natural world. And so that caught my eye because I thought it was pretty interesting that there would be a website in this fashion and committed to doing this thing. So when it gets down to a section that says, why should you care? And it goes on to say, life is short. Nevertheless, billions of people invest incalculable hours making fruitless pleas to non-existent gods, participating in lavish rituals with no tangible effects, and whittling away tight budgets to support extravagant religious institutions or spiritual advisors. And what caught my eye there more than anything else is that it says, life is short, billions of people invest in calculable blah blah blah. Now the fact that billions of people follow after something doesn't make it true. Such as, for example, Islam is followed by over 1 billion people. That doesn't make it true. But it does bring up the idea, or it makes you wonder, how are billions of people so deceived that they all believe there is more than just life, than this tangible life that we see today, but somehow they're all wrong, and only the few, such as the folks that host this website, put it together, are the enlightened few who believe themselves to be the ones that know better. And not only that, as I read in the mission statement, it says that there's no gods, angels, etc., or at least none that exercise power over the world. In other words, there might be a God, but he supposedly doesn't exercise power over the world. It's sort of like the deist philosophy that says, yes, there is a God, but he's sort of away from the world, and he doesn't really care about the world. He doesn't interact with the world. So yes, we're going to have to meet him someday and so on. But as long as we do our best, then that God will accept us. And interesting philosophy, to say the least. It goes on to say, imagine how deep the regrets must be for the former missionary, seminary student, or long-time minister after realizing that this life is probably the only only life that one will ever have. Again, there's the probably again. And so it just kind of makes you wonder, if you're not sure whether your atheism or your naturalism is the truth, then that's a very bad position to be in. It's a much worse position to be in than to be religious, even if religion is false. Because you're not going to find out, or you're going to find out once you get to the other side, that what you have been thinking and teaching all along was not true, and you're now going into a torture and a fate worse than death. You know, if all there is after death is nothing, well, then there's nothing, and you live your life uprightly and religiously and truthfully and being a moral individual, and then you die, and well, there's nothing. But if there is something, and you live your life not believing in that something, in that someone, then when you get to the other side, you're going to have a very rude awakening. And so it goes along the lines of Pascal's wager. And Pascal's idea, I think I've mentioned it in a previous video, was just the idea that it is more reasonable to believe there's a God than not. Therefore, we need to be religious, to put it in his terms, rather than not, because there's a greater chance that there is a God than there is not. It goes on to say, another subdivision, why internet infidels? Have you ever felt that there would be fewer religious believers if only more information about the reasons for non-belief were readily available? And that's a little laughable to me, because there's plenty of information out there about non-religious people. I don't know how many of you have seen the billboards that say there's probably no God, so enjoy your life, and so on and so forth. And they're all over the place, and all over the internet. If you go to YouTube and you type in atheist or atheism, there'll be thousands of videos that come up. So if there aren't more atheists, it's not because there's not enough information, but because people realize that to be an atheist is a dead-end philosophy. It really is. Continuing, in fact, we are the only organization that aims to reach beyond the memberships of free thought organizations by providing arguments for naturalism and atheism in an effort to educate the wider public about the grounds for holding that all religions are false. And notice how they use the terminology free thinkers. In other words, if you're religious, if you believe in Christianity or any other religion, well, then you're not a free thinker. Your mind is enslaved. You're not reasonable. You're not rational. Now, to be fair and to be honest, there's a lot of religions out there that are just like that. But Christianity is a time-space religion that appeals not just to the emotion, not just to faith, but also to the mind and to the reason. It's like Paul was telling the Corinthians in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, and in the context of spiritual gifts, when he's saying, I will pray with my understanding as well as with my spirit. I will sing with my spirit, and I will sing with my understanding. So Christianity is not just, well, believe this just because. It's believe this because there are rational, reasonable reasons to believe it. And so it's important for us to know that so that we can counteract this type of thinking. It goes on to say, encouraging readers to make up their own minds by exploring ideas at their own pace, with no pressure to conform with the conclusions of any of our authors, away from the judgmental eyes of intolerant religious brethren. And so again, here's the idea that you have the free thinkers, just whatever you want to think, and then you have the religious, oppressive thinkers, the enslaved thinkers. And so they don't realize that they're doing the same thing that they accuse the religions of doing. In other words, they are drawing a line and saying, if you're religious, if you believe all of this balderdash, well then your mind is enslaved. You really don't know what you're doing. You have to be like us. You have to be a free thinker. I think that there's a few more things that can be said about this. Number one is that I think a lot of this is a sign of opulence in our society. Because really, what can the atheist offer the poor other than a life full of misery, and there's nothing at the end of it? There's nothingness. In other words, you have a life of suffering, a life of poverty, and then when you die, what? There's nothing there. So there's nothing that makes life that gives life meaning. It is worthless. If you have a lot of resources, you have a lot of time and inclination to follow this type of thinking, because you're lulled into thinking that this is all there is, so you might as well live it up. But when you don't have those resources, you understand that, hey, there's got to be more than this life, because these wrongs have to be righted somewhere, whether it's here or in the life to come. Bear in mind also that the carnal mind cannot understand the things of the Spirit. We can't rage against the machine, so to speak. People who are in a lost condition are not going to understand the things of God unless God grants them the grace and the faith to believe. You know, it's like 1 Corinthians 2:14 through 16 says, the carnal mind cannot understand the things of the Spirit of God, for they are spiritually discerned, and they are foolishness unto Him. And so people like Infidels.org are a prime example of that truth, of that reality. The fact that the carnal mind just cannot understand the things of the Spirit. The bottom line is that the atheist will always have to answer the quintessential questions about existence and about life. How did we all get here? How can everything man have, or man makes, have a design, but nature come about by pure chance? And will anyone invent a program such as the one contained in the New Testament if it's not true? Will anyone suffer the way that the early Christians and many throughout history have suffered for the name of Christ, die the way that some of them died for something they knew was not true, in the case of the apostles, because they were in a position to know that it was not true? What would be the purpose of doing that? And so the naturalist, the atheist, will always have to answer those quintessential questions. You know, if life does not have a meaning, then what is it all about? How did it all come about? And the bottom line is that the atheist, the unbeliever, the naturalist, has as much faith in something as we do in God. Their faith is pinned on the hopes that, hey, this is all there is, that there really isn't a God, that it all came about by chance. They have no way of proving that that's the case. Of course, they will tell you otherwise, but that's not reality. If they're trying to tell you that, they're either deceived or they're trying to deceive you. So there you have it. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas holiday. You enjoy it with loved ones. We're going to enjoy it with our son and maybe a few others who may come. I don't know yet. But have a great holiday season. Have a great new year. And hopefully we'll see you on the other side of the new year as we continue to serve the Lord and work for Him in His kingdom.